Okay.
I've got it recording, Rick.
All right, sounds good. So as usual, we're going to record this. We are recording this meeting, and it will be updated to our YouTube page a little bit later this week. I'm going to start sharing my screen for the PowerPoint presentation. And, all right, it's popped up there. Welcome to Rotary, everyone. I'd like to thank Shane for being our greeter today. And I've asked for Rotarian Sierra Allen to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Time for our moment of reflection, and it looks like Brooke's not able to join us quite yet today, but she did send me her moment of reflection for the day. She's in another meeting. We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice that thorn bushes have roses. I read through this morning when I saw it and just went, wow, what a great way to represent looking on the bright side of things. We've had some storms here lately. We've got some rainy skies. We may all be stuck at home, but at least we can jump on these Zoom meetings together. And a lot of folks have been able to spend a lot more time with family because of COVID. And I know that I've cherished a lot of the extra meals I've had with my kids when I'm not on the road. Rejoicing that thorn bushes have roses. Song time today is, I'll stop my screen for just a moment. We're going to sing the Rotary song.
A-R-Y is tendency from north to south, east to west, to most serves best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary.
Thank you, Shane, for your wonderful dance moves there. Back to sharing the screen. And it's time for the introduction of our guest, Sharon Lawrenskis. Thank you for introducing our guest today.
Thank you. As you know, we always welcome guests. And as far as I can tell, the only guest we have as our permanent guests are Beck and our Rotary Exchange student, Allison Connet, who just recently returned from a year in Thailand. And she seems to have disappeared. Allison, are you still there?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay, there you are. Okay. I'd like to say a few words about Allison, actually. Allison, I first met Allison 2 years ago when she came into my German 1 class as a freshman. And it's not unusual for me to have students eventually inquire about Rotary Youth Exchange, but Allison on day 1 said, Frau Lawrenskis, I'm so excited. I want to apply to be a Rotary Exchange student. And this was in large part because her sister Becca had been one of our students 2 years before and went to Thailand. It's also relatively unusual for a student who is a freshman to be accepted, even high. We often interview students and say, great potential, but you need to mature another year and come back and apply next year. But Allison was so impressive when we interviewed her that we accepted her to go out her sophomore year, which she did. And so I'm looking forward to her talking a little later. She is unfortunately in the process of moving to Columbia, Missouri, and some of her laptop is there, and she had some technical difficulties with a film she wanted to share. So she's going to just talk to you today about some of her experiences and have time for questions, and then hopefully we can have her back at another time when she comes back to visit her family here and do the full presentation with the PowerPoint. So welcome, Allison.
Thank you so much, Frau.
You're welcome.
Couple club announcements here today. Want to thank everyone once again for the Foundation Donation Challenge. We are through May. If you'd like to add your name to that list, please get in touch with me or Jim Grant, and we'll get you on the list to continue that program. But we've already set that all the way up through May, so thank you all for that. Our Mass for Haiti. I know Ella's on the call. She wasn't initially. She sent me an update. So Ella, do you want to give an update on the Mass for Haiti project?
Well, thank you, Rick. The only update is that we are still in process of making masks. We're hoping to finish it off this afternoon, and I will be available at the I Can Read Center between 3 and 6 for us to finish cutting, organizing, boxing, getting it all ready for shipping to Haiti. And so we're still increasing our numbers of masks. And anyone who can, please come out any part of that time that you could give us some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. And one of the things she put in her notes that she sent, I've got it here, the main target group for the Mass is about 2,000 school children in 9 schools who started in-person schooling this week. So want to make sure we get those masks down there. Thank you, Ella, for leading the charge on this project, that we can make sure that kids stay safe.
Sure.
We've got our SAH employee food drive, energizing our healthcare heroes. Please continue to make donations through our club. Go to SIH, put messages on their message boards. If you need the information for that, if you'd like to jump back into that, please let me know, and I'll get you the link for their message boards for the healthcare heroes over there. I don't think Cindy or Jill is on the call today, but I know that last week they had sent another bunch of donations over there for the ladder shifts. There had been food going. For those of you who might not remember, there were restaurants and other people bringing meals and gifts to the hospitals, but they weren't necessarily getting to the later shift. So our club had kind of championed getting some snack foods and some healthier snacks to the nurses' stations and things like that for the second and third shifts at the hospital. Carbondale Warming Center, Gail White is not able to be on the call today. He had another meeting, but we did get a bunch of additional shelves over to the Carbondale Warming Center last week through a local individual who was moving. They are still in need of box fans, and as things get colder, they're going to be needing blankets as well. So reach out to Gail, or you can drop those things off yourself at the Carbondale Warming Center. We are still providing lunch once a week. Today's lunch is beef ravioli with marinara sauce, steamed vegetables, chef salad, garlic rolls, and they're doing August birthday cake and ice cream for dessert today. So thank you, Rotarians, for continuing to pay for your meals that we are not eating, because it's able to supply the Carbondale Warming Center with meals on a weekly basis. I saw Orr's hand go up. Orr, do you have something to add with the Warming Center?
Yeah, if you check their Facebook page, yesterday they posted about a bunch of pictures of the shelves. They got a delivery of about $4,000 worth of food. And they now have a room that is full of staples on your shelf. So.
It's great. Thank you, Orr. They're definitely putting those shelves to good use then. thank you all for your donations and your ability to find those. Carbondale Warming Center, as we heard Carmelita speak last week, they're very grateful for everything we've been able to do to support them. 100 Little Things project. Shane, I know you had some other things going on. Do you want to jump in and give an update here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
We are currently up to 25 completed projects now. 3 more were completed. I don't believe Cindy Buys is on the phone, but the Cards for Kids project, she has the cards. We're just trying to find a location that will take them. I donated some more vegetables, tomatoes and green peppers to the warming center this week, so I think they're pretty good on vegetables. And we currently have 28 projects underway, so keep it up.
Yep. Here's some great pictures of of our team putting together those masks. So great job, everybody. Great to see those pictures of people in action. Some district news this week. District 6510 released a membership contest. Everybody can see on the screens. Otherwise, we'll make sure we get it sent out to everybody, posted on our website. Beat the clock. So the clubs that can add the highest percentage of new or reinstated members with a join date between August 8th and December 31st, the top 3 clubs will get donations made by the district. So, let's continue our efforts to try and bring new members in. We had some great visitors the last couple of weeks. We'll do the best we can to get those members in and be able to help our mission. So it helps in twofold. So this is just an extra bonus. The more people we have, the more work we can do in our communities. All right. Good news to share. Sergeant at Arms Gail is not with us today, but it's time for your good news, everybody.
My wife and I, Nancy and I, have just celebrated our 36th wedding anniversary over the weekend. And the Reverend Will Travelstead of our club, in his role as a Methodist minister, conducted our wedding. And that was 36 years ago.
Wow.
Hey.
I've got some good news. My son, who is 14 months old, been taking a couple steps recently. The last couple weeks, he'd been starting to get his feet under him, and yesterday he took off. And so I guess the playtime is over. I've now got an official toddler who's walking around the house, and it's exciting, but at the same time, it's a little scary. Any more good news for the day? Go ahead.
This is Shane. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I cannot see everybody with the presentation mode. I can't see everybody, so just speak up if you've got one. I know Shane's got one, and then anybody else after Shane, go ahead.
Well, you had mentioned the membership challenge, which I think is a great thing. So I have some good news. I will donate $100 to the Club Rotarian that brings in the most members during that time period. If you'll flip back to that slide, I believe it runs to toward the end of the calendar year, the end of December. So I will donate $100 to the one Rotarian that brings in the most according to the rules that are on that sheet. So anybody else wants to add to that challenge, I'll challenge other Rotarians, and just to go a little further, I will donate $100 to the club plus $100 to that individual member. So let's see how many Rotarians we can bring into the Rotary Club of Carbondale this year. So that's my challenge.
Anyone else with some good news for the day? Okay. We'll move right into our guest speaker, Allison. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
And we can open it up to Q&A.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna start by saying that I came back around June 26th, and that was about 10 months, like on the dot, when I like arrived in Taichung, Taiwan, which in translation is Taichung means like Zheng is middle and Tai is like Taiwan. So I like was in the middle of Taiwan. So for like traveling anywhere in the island, like I was in the best position. Like I could have exchange students from like Taipei, which is in the northernmost part of Taiwan, come into my city, and like we could hang out, and or like the south, they could come to me, or I could come to them. And there was like a lot of transportation. So I was in a very like good location for being an exchange student and being able to connect with people in different cities. When I was there, I had 3 host families. My first host family, they were businessmen and women. They had like their own company. I'm still not quite sure what they did, but they did a lot of advertising, and they would always be traveling to a lot of like Southeastern Asian countries. But with Corona and everything, like they have stopped completely. Usually they would go up to Taipei or go to like the bigger cities and like have meetings and stuff, and that like completely stopped due to Corona. So I can see on like Facebook, because they're like my first host family, that they've been just kind of chilling at home. But Taiwan has done a really good job with controlling the Corona in there, so it's mostly back to normal. My second host family was the dad sold essential oils, and the mom was a teacher. And so it was really, really nice, because she would help me with my Chinese, which I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't very good at. Chinese is a very difficult language to learn, but I did learn like the basics and how to get around and how to like eat food if I went at the local night market, or just like basic conversational. Like I understood the basics, and I'm proud to say that I know that much. But Chinese is a very, very difficult language. And my last host family, which was my favorite, the dad was a pilot and the mom was a stay-at-home mom. But the dad, since he was a pilot, he would always bring food home from like Japan, or like I don't know, like he went to China, Hong Kong. He just went all over the place. So they always had different kinds of food I could try. But due to the Corona, my host dad stopped going into the airports, and he would just like remain in the plane so he wouldn't be exposed, because they really tried their best like not to expose the family, and like any risk, like if like you went outside like the house during like March and April, like you couldn't, like they controlled their household of like when people were going outside due to the Corona. But I love them the most. In each family, I had 2 hosts. In my first 2 host families, I had 2 host siblings. They were pretty good. They were younger than me. So that was kind of fun. And my last host family I had 2 younger brothers and an older brother who went to Japan. And I was able to meet the host brother because, like many exchange students like all over the world, we had to like do early returns. And so most of the exchange students out of Taiwan came home around April. And so that's, I think, when my host brother came home. And Taiwan, like as soon as the Corona came, like they heard about it, the first week of January, I believe, they like heard news about in Wuhan that cases were like starting to appear more rapidly. And so by the end of January, which is like the beginning of like their winter break, it's Chinese New Year, I was like in the mountains or whatever. And they, like, the president was just like, you know, after Chinese New Year, everyone needs to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. There won't be school till like the middle of February. Like, everything's going to be shut down. And that, I believe, like, her placing like these restrictions like really early on really helped like stop the spread of corona. Like, she did like the right thing, and I really applaud the president, Tsai Ing-wen. She did like a really good job. But whenever the exchange students came home from Taiwan, when they got to the airport, because they're coming from foreign countries, they would be like assisted out of the airplane. Like, you had a person like always be by you and track you where your steps were, so if you did have the corona, they knew where you went. And like then they'd have to get into like special taxis that were completely like sealed off from like the driver, so like you were in your own like oxygen bubble, and like the driver had their own like space, so like no air was like, you know, shared, I guess. And I remember him coming home, and he didn't come home, he went to a different house, like an apartment, because they weren't allowed to see the family for 2 weeks. So he went on exchange, and then he came back to Taiwan, and he was completely isolated for 2 weeks. And so I remember talking to him about that, and he said it was kind of lonely, but he's glad that like he was able to just spend that time like alone, make sure he was safe, didn't have the corona, and like just time to process for himself. But before like everything started, like this corona and everything else, I was able to travel like a lot, because the transportation in Taiwan is amazing. I love public transportation. They had like a high-speed rail, which would get you like anywhere from the north or the south within like an hour. It was really, really nice. And they had like a regular train that like would stop at the different like cities within like your district, I guess. And then they had like a train, but it would be like it was just like a faster train, which it would cost you, it wouldn't be as much as a high-speed train ticket, but like it would still get you to like that far city like within like 2 hours. Like, it was really convenient. I miss public transportation. So that was really nice. But when I was in Taiwan, I was able to go to Japan, actually. So that was really nice. But when I went to Japan was in the middle of February. So most kids, when they came back from like Chinese New Year, they were, you know, staying home, because like the government ordered all the school children to like, you know, you can't go to school till like the end of February. Like, we were going to shut everything down. But I decided I was still going to go to Japan, because I paid my money, and corona at this point, it wasn't bad. But like the night before I went to like go to Japan, my like Rotary Club in Taichung, they were calling me like all night, my counselor. They were saying, do you really want to go? Like, you're probably going to be exposed, because where I went in Japan, they had the highest like positivity rate at the time, which was Hokkaido. Hokkaido is the northernmost part region, so like it was kind of like isolated, but like once it got there, like it really spread. And I think when I went there were like 7 new cases, and by the time I left, there were like 50. But like to them, to Taiwanese people, like to anyone I met, really, like that was a really, really big deal, and they just didn't want to risk it. But I told them, I said, I'm going to Japan, like I'm gonna do this. It's not bad right now, and like I'm gonna be like isolated from people anyway. Like, I'm only gonna be with my group, like we're going skiing. And I ended up going, and my club was so mad at me, I'm gonna be honest. They said that was not very smart, because, you know, throughout the entire like thing, Taiwanese people, like all of them knew the severity and like how bad this pandemic could get. And so they were just like very, very worried, and which is understandable. So when I came back from Japan, I had to self-quarantine for 2 weeks, which I did not know of before I went. And so I was very sad when I was in quarantine. And at this point, like I was texting people from home, and I said, you know, I'm in quarantine and it really sucks. And they're like, it can't be that bad. And then, you know, a couple months later, you know, the US is shut down. No one can leave their house. And they're like, oh yeah, it really sucks. Like, we understand how you feel now. And I was like, yeah. So basically, like the rules that like the government ordered were, is like, if you go in public places, like use the buses or on the trains, or just like in places that, you know, you're really close together, like museums or like anything like that, you have to wear a mask. And if you didn't, you'd have like a 300 USD fine. And so everyone took it seriously. You know, wearing masks wasn't a political debate. Everyone just respected it. And, you know, I would go on the bus, everyone would wear it. But during this time as well, because I'm a foreigner, they knew that foreigners or people coming from foreign countries were bringing the coronavirus in. And so, you know, I'd go on the bus and people wouldn't sit by me because they thought I had the corona. And so that was kind of hard to deal with, that people just, they thought very lowly of me and they just wouldn't be by me. And I was kind of like outcasted for a couple months. And so that was kind of like, that was a new thing to like deal with, and that I didn't expect to experience on exchange. But all these like precautions that the government did take, like by May, everything was open. Like you still had to wear a mask on the bus, but like I ended up going on a trip, like one of the planned like round Taiwan trips, but I went to an island off the coast, off the west coast of Taiwan. And that was really nice that was really good to experience, because I was able to create memories with a lot of my exchange friends before everyone started leaving. Because before May, about half the exchange students that were like inbounds in Taiwan left. And so like Taipei and Kaohsiung, which is the south, basically like the entire district like kicked them out. They said they have to go home because there was just a lot of like political and just like a lot of debates. But Taipei, like there was absolutely like no exchange students by the end of April. Actually, like there was no one. So I was really grateful to just go to Penghu, and which was the island, and just, you know, have fun there. And then I came back and I didn't have to quarantine. Like everything was safe, because by then I don't think Taiwan had a case in a month. And right now I think it's been like over 100 days since Taiwan has had like a case, or like person to person like transmission, I guess. And so like, you know, Taiwan, they're very like proud of themselves for what they've done during this time. And like during the months of like March, and I think like March and April, like they did not export any like masks. They said, you know, this is going to be for our civilians because our people come first. So they didn't ship anything out. And so once they knew it was safe and that the corona was like under control here, then they started shipping to other countries, mostly European countries. And, you know, you can kind of see the differences between like, you know, how the US government handled the pandemic and how Taiwan did. And I really like admire like the Taiwanese government and just how they handled it. It's very admirable, and it's really nice. But something also is the kids, whenever they go to school, it wasn't online. Like we went in person, and right now like they're still in person because in the beginning they like got it under control. And so it just goes to show like, you know, other countries and their different kind of procedures and precautions and how the effect had on like their future, I guess you could say. And so I don't know, it's just very interesting to compare and contrast, like, you know, the countries themselves, but also during this time and place like in the world. So yeah, it was a good time. I made a lot of amazing friends, a lot of just all over the world, which that's all I wanted to do, was make like really good connections, be able to travel and like, you know, not have to rent a hotel or anything. I could stay at my friend's house, and I definitely did that. And so I had fun. One experience I was able to have is go to the National Taichung Theater. And I went there like quite often actually, because my Rotary Club would give me tickets, and I would just like go to these like orchestras or plays or like dance things. But sadly, after the corona, like everything got shut down. Like I think it's still shut down where they don't, because it's too close in space. But I was able to go to the National Taichung Theater for like the annual like Christmas party, and so that was kind of special because that's like kind of like an exclusive event for like these upper class like Taichung individuals. And so I was able to see this show of the like famous dancers, or like the really professional dancers at this company, perform like a Disney kind of like dance. And it was really nice. And I had like Taiwanese food at this thing, and I was able to like talk to other people, and it was like business, so I was able to make like connections and stuff. But that was like a really a memorable night, because many memories, because all my friends had to get dressed up. Like, it was a very formal event, and that's something like, I probably won't ever experience again at that level of, extravaganza. Like, I don't know. It was definitely an experience. But there's so many like stories that I could share. But it was a good year, good 10 months, but I'm very happy to be back home, and it's nice, but it's also very different because of the precautions that aren't being taken here, and how widespread the corona is. And when I got here, I wasn't used to not being able to sit in restaurants or see like friends, or like go out. Like, everything's shut down, or like going out of business, and it wasn't as lively as I remember like the US. And I remember telling my mom, like, the first 2 weeks that I got here, I said, it seems so sad here, like there's just like not life or whatever. And I don't know, there's just so much people, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but I just feel like people are kind of like sad and depressed with like how things are going right now. And I didn't see that when I was abroad. And so I'm kind of having to adjust with like how people are feeling about today's like current position here, like right now in the US. And it's very different. But I'm transitioning. Like, it's gonna take some time, obviously. I've only been here for like a month and a half. There's still like habits that I do that are very like Taiwanese. Like, occasionally when I say thank you, like I bow a little, which is, kind of weird here. So I get a couple stares, but it's fun. Definitely manners. They had like their own kind of manners there, and I've noticed that I don't have them anymore, in the degree that I don't like say please or thank you, because you don't really say please actually a lot over there. And so I don't say that, and I know that's, I got to do that. Like, that's like the Midwestern way, and so I'm kind of easing back into that. Just things about that. So yeah, that's kind of like my little ramble about exchange. Does anyone have any questions or anything at all? Oh, I don't know.
Allison, were there any other aspects of transitioning that you noticed? I mean, almost all exchange students go through some reverse culture shock. And unfortunately, we didn't have the Grand Rapids conference this year, which always helps with that. So is there anything else you have had issues with? Maybe, anyway, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but.
I'm not sure yet. Like, I haven't really gotten time to like think like how things have like changed me, or like what's like really affecting. But I do see myself like more just on edge, I guess, or just like the environment isn't the same, and I guess my body is still getting used to that. And so sometimes like it's just too much for me. Mm-hmm. I guess that's not like the culture, but like it can be like kind of like overwhelming, or just like being able to speak in the language that everyone else speaks. Mm-hmm. And I have to participate in conversations, and I like just being kind of like quiet in a sense, where I get to listen to what they say, but I don't have to talk, because like I could understand like the context of what they were saying, but like I would never like say anything like what they were talking about, like colleges or like other countries, like some random topics. But here, like, I can understand everything, and I'm like supposed to have an opinion, and that's kind of like, I definitely have an opinion, but like saying and expressing it is just like kind of weird right now. And so that's where I'm kind of at.
Do you think it helped that your family has had an exchange student before? Oftentimes it's difficult for parents, for example, when their students come back, because they're almost always more independent. They're used to, as you pointed out, traveling everywhere on public transportation, and then they get back to the United States, and especially in a small town like this, they typically can't do that. So do you think that helped in your family, that they've been through this before?
Yeah, I definitely think my mom has like an understanding for like the emotions and just like the overall like feeling, and like myself is just like, it's different, and she's like accepting of that and willing to give me like, time to process everything within what that's happened within the past like 10 months. So she's also very understanding, like, as a human being. So it's been very nice, but she's just patient. And I have like my sister to talk to if I need to do anything, which really has helped. And I also have my friend to talk to. And I think what has helped like the most is just sharing stories with the other exchange students, which is something I missed out on at Grand Rapids. So, because that has just, you know, you're not alone in the experience that you had. And so that's very nice to, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have questions?
Yes, Allison, what was the most interesting or different kind of food you experienced while you were out of the country?
So many. My one dad, I don't think bamboo, I actually really like bamboo, but I only liked like my host dad's bamboo. And like, that's like, I would just eat all of it. But like restaurants and stuff, I didn't like it, but that's not like the weirdest. I don't even know, like sometimes I didn't know what it was. There was this one food, because I originally lived in Changhua, which is like by train, it's like 20 minutes away from Taichung. And I'd have to take that every day to like school and to go into the city. But they were super famous for food. And they had this thing, it was like, I don't even know what it was. It was like this like glutinous rice, and it did not look appealing at all. And it looked like it was weird looking. I don't even know how to explain that. And it had like rice in it, but like it looked really, really bad, did not smell good. And my host parents were like laughing as they gave it to me. But it was actually like really, really good. But I had like liver and like the pig blood thingy. I don't even know what that was. I had weird things. And after a while, like I tried them and I said, no, I'm good. Like I'll have something. But I tried it. There's also like this thing they have, like tea eggs. I don't have those. And everyone did.
Well, Allison, did they make you eat the stinky tofu?
Yes, I did not. I really like tofu. I love tofu. I love it. But I did not like stinky tofu. I think
so which part of the bamboo shoot do you like? You like the real tender stuff?
Yes. But I don't know how he would make it. He was a very, very good cook. And it was just so good. Like, we miss that. But like, if you'd go to like a store, it was kind of more like bitter, I guess you could say, like how they cooked it. But his were just so good because he had a farm in the mountains and he would drive and pick them. And so they were fresh.
Well, you could buy some canned ones at the international store here in Carbondale.
Yeah, I might have to do that. I really like my bamboo.
Allison, I have another question. Did you find it difficult with your schoolwork that's conducted in a different language?
The thing is I went to a school that was, it was like economic school. So they taught like trades or whatever, or things that, you know, they won't necessarily go to like the best college in Taiwan. Like they'll just go to like, you know,
like a vocational school?
Vocational, yes.
Yeah.
And so I was in the English department actually, which, you know, I hoped like, because they had like other things to do, like they had like dressmaking and like other things more hands-on, but they're like, oh, she knows English, we'll put her in English class. And they didn't give me like work to participate in. And so sometimes I just sat there, but my one classes that I did really like were like, it was like social studies. And so my social studies teacher, they taught about like Eastern Asian countries, but it was just interesting because she had traveled to like all these countries. Like she had traveled to North Korea. So I was able to like hear these stories of just her travels of all like over this plate, like all over like Asia. And it was just really interesting, especially the North Korea one, because she had like some pictures and she was like, these are like really dangerous to take, but like here's the pictures. English class was fine. It was taught by Taiwanese people, so obviously, you know, English is their first language, so there's going to be some grammatical mistakes, and so they're teaching these kids English, and sometimes they're not teaching it correctly. But I never corrected the teacher because, you know, they're trying, they know English. But I often helped teach English. Like I would help them with their homework or just go on the board and explain like words they didn't understand. And I participated in like art class. I really liked art class. It was more
Well,
things
did you
like
learn how to use a ink brush?
ink brush.
Yeah.
No, I just they said no to that one for me.
Sorry you missed out.
I know a couple of my friends did, because you can go up to, like, it's kind of southern of Taipei, I guess, and you can write like with the brushes on these lanterns, and you can like bring them up, like put them into the sky or whatever, like on a railroad area. But my host parents never took me to that because it's kind of a drive. Taiwanese people don't like driving more than 30 minutes, or it's like forever. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a very small island, and you think they travel it a lot, but they don't like traveling. So it's kind of funny, because as an American, you drive to whatever state every other weekend or whatever. So it's just different. So yeah. Anything other, or yeah. So that's all I have right now that I can think of that is rather interesting. I brought back lots of, like, because I really like art, and so I have a lot of postcards, I guess, that I've hung up in my room that have like the Taiwanese art on it. And that I really enjoyed that part, like the beauty of like traditional kind of like buildings or whatever, in like Asian kind of style. Like I really admire that now. So I definitely see like changes within myself. So do you have any questions?
Allison, I had a question. How about the clothes that you wore? Did you dress Western, or did you try and get involved with the local dress code?
It is a very modernized country. Like they love clothing. Like I don't know. They have like many like Korea is a very like influential like part on the fashion and like the pop culture, and so they dress it's not like what you'd see like stereotypical like Asian kind of style. It is all very Western, and there's like this thing going around social media. I saw it's in China, like just China like streetwear, and it's like you're going on the runway, and that's how it was in like Taiwan. Like people dress to impress, and if you go outside, like you can't wear sweatpants, like like this kind of sweatshirt. You kind of have to dress up a little. But I was able to buy like a traditional Taiwanese dress for my birthday, but that's only like for special occasions, and so I wore that for my birthday. But other than that, they don't really wear like traditional clothes at all.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have to wear school uniforms?
I did. It was
Okay.
horrible. It was hot. I had a skirt, and it was really hot because it's awfully humid there, especially like the rainy season and like August, September, but then it got really cold because I was used to the hot weather, and then it got into the 50s and 60s, and I was just freezing. So I don't know how I'm gonna do Southern Illinois like winter. But then I had like I don't know what it was, like it kind of looked more Japanese, because Taiwanese people love the Japanese like anything, and so I had like a kind of Japanese. It kind of looked like a sailor kind of uniform, and I wore that, and yeah, every day. And then I had a sports uniform, which I looked like a minion. It was like all yellow.
Well, that's because Taiwan was occupied by the Japanese from 1895 to 1945.
Yeah. And so like when you go there, you see kind of like the, I think it's the Qing dynasty, I believe. Like you see some of like architecture, but then you go up and you see like the governmental buildings, and they're all like Japanese style. And so you have like the mix between cultures going on.
Your host families, are they concerned about the takeover efforts by the Communist Chinese?
Oh yes, every person on Taiwan is very worried. You know, what is China going to do? Even if they're like, you know, pro, like, you know, going back to communist China or just staying like independent. Like you have both people on both spectrums. Like when I was there, they had a presidential election, and so they had Tsai Ing-wen, which she won, and you had Han Kuo-yu, which is a funny translation to his name, which means like Korean fish, and so all the kids would like make fun of him, but he was more like pro-China, and he wanted to like have more trade and have more, you know, the Chinese government would like more come in more to Taiwan. And Tsai Ing-wen, who did win, is more democratic, very like progressive, and she's like, we're our own country, which sides up with a lot of like the younger kids' views. And so she won, and so it's been kind of like interesting. But whenever the effort, like I think it was in September or October, the things within Hong Kong's government started to like heat up, and a lot of protests and, you know, killings of like protesters and like all of that stuff that's been happening in Hong Kong. Every like wall I lived in a city, it was covered with like pro Hong Kong stuff, pro democracy. Like you'd go to the train station and there was just a wall that was just like free Hong Kong, or you go like under the walkways and it's just like pictures of like what like China's doing to Hong Kong civilians. Like just they'd have pictures of like the dead bodies kind of thing, just to show you. And so it was definitely like something to see.
Do you know who puts that stuff up on the walls? Is it the people, or is it the people affiliated with the government?
No, it's the people. Because you could go up to it. I saw a lot of people when they were being like put up, people get off the train and they see it, and then they had like these big bins filled with Post-it notes. And so the wall was covered with like, you know, free Hong Kong, but then every person would go write on the Post-it note and put it on the wall saying, I support you, and then write their name and their country. And so they had like Thailand, UK, like America, you know, the Indonesians, like it was everyone collectively like, you know, showing their support. And like I'd asked my classmates, I said, you know, are you scared about China one day taking over like Taiwan? And they're like, yes, but like we would fight for our country. Like they were like, we're not Chinese. And I was like, okay, yeah. And they're just very like, we're Taiwanese, like we're very different. And they made that very clear to me. But they really love Taiwan, even though, you know, it has been like kind of suppressed by, you know, China for many years. But with the corona, I think relations with a lot of more international countries will get better.
Do you know offhand if your host families are Taiwanese, or were they immigrants from China after the communists took over in 1949?
I don't know. Most of them, I know my first host dad was definitely Taiwanese because his mother spoke Taiwanese. And like I could not communicate with her because all she knew was Taiwanese.
So you communicated in the homes in Mandarin?
Yeah, like a little bit. It wasn't very good, but I could tell them like what I needed and all that. But like talking to the grandparents, like most grandparents know Taiwanese. And a lot of kids that would come into my school were from like the mountain areas, like Nantou, which is like in the middle. And most of those kids are like Taiwanese, and their families speak Taiwanese at home, not Chinese.
Right.
And so a lot of them are very like, you know, I'm going to teach my kids when I'm older, like Taiwanese, and preserve this language because like it's oral. It's not like written down.
Well, it's a Chinese dialect.
Yeah. But I think it has 8 tones.
It's very difficult to learn.
It's so hard. It has 8 tones. Like some of it's familiar, but like it's very different. Yeah. the one word I do know is grandma, which sounds like kind of German. It's Oma, Frau. So that's what I do remember, because I called the grandma that.
Cool, I love that.
Yeah. So it was good. It was a good time. And she was very, so. Yeah.
Do we have any additional questions for Allison? I don't see any. Allison, thank you so much for coming on with us today. It's great of you to share your experience. It's an experience most of us have never had and probably never will. So it's awesome to be able to hear the impact that trip had on your life, and to hear a little bit, especially to hear for me the comments about coronavirus and how things were handled there compared to how they're handled here. So I thank you for going on that trip, and I thank you for coming back and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to share it.
I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here for the rest of the presentation. Coming up next week, we have John Jackson speaking on the 2020 election. The 26th of August, Liz Jarnigan from SIU Athletics. In September, we have Jill. I can never say her last name, but we're going to have Jill here to discuss the Rotary International Foundation. And we have a presentation on estate planning and one on Polio Plus. So thank you, Linda Flowers, for having our schedule set for the next, about 2 months at least, I think we've got. So that's great. We've got service above self, as always. Thank you all for your hard work that you've been doing and putting others up in front of ourselves. And now it's time for the four-way test, which I believe Sharon Harris Johnson is not able to make it today. Shane, would you mind leading us in the four-way test here today to close out the meeting?
Sure. If you want to unmute yourself and say along with me, that'd be great. So, number one, four-way test of all things that we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second,
is it fair to all
concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Anybody know the secret fifth one? Arbeck, you gonna tell us the secret fifth one?
Is it fun?
Have fun.
They actually do have banners with it on already from Russell Hampton.
That's great.
With that, our meeting is adjourned. I rang the bell over you there, Shane. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were adding a couple things in. Thank you all for joining us today. And we'd love for you to check out our website, Facebook page, like us on follow us on Instagram, and check out our YouTube, where we've been posting all of our meetings. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
You too.